Okay, well, welcome everyone. My name is Brian Kaiser. I'm on the health policy team at the Center for American Progress in Washington, D.C. I've been involved with Primary Care for All Americans since its inception as a volunteer and then steering committee member and advisor, and I am also a proud new member of the board of directors. So, on behalf of the board, I'm delighted to welcome you to tonight's Teach In, Learn In Zoom session. Thank you for joining us this evening. With over 1,400 people from 40 states, the District of Columbia, and 350 zip codes, we're reminded of the incredible momentum that we're building together to provide primary care to everyone in every neighborhood and in every community. Thank you for your dedication and your commitment to expanding access to primary care across the country. Now, it's my great pleasure to introduce our moderator for this evening, Chioma Nwankwo, and to extend my sincere thanks to all of the presenters for tonight's event. And I'd also like to thank the PC4AA Zoom committee, as well as John Wright, Patty Armstrong, and Liv Verity for organizing this event. Take it away, Chioma.
Hi, everyone. I'm Chiama Wankwo. I'm an alumnus of Ross University School of Medicine and a prospective family medicine resident. I want to start by thanking all of you for being here tonight by joining us. You're helping build a great movement, one that focuses on providing healthcare to people in every neighborhood and community, primary care for all Americans. If you haven't shared your community yet, please do so in the chat so we can all see who's here and we can work together to build this great movement. Please continue to refrain from using professional titles, please. This space is about focusing on the importance of being here together, engaged in this work, and valuing the ideas and communities that will ultimately drive this movement forward. Tonight, we're here to both teach and learn from each other, so we encourage you to contribute by submitting your questions in the chat throughout the session. Please stay with us until the end of the session, where we will have a Q&A and discussion. We'll explore how you can help bring primary care to everyone in your own neighborhood and community. Now it's my great pleasure to introduce our keynote speaker, Len Fromer. Len Fromer is responsible for the oversight and leadership of the Turner Impact Capital Healthcare's initiative. He is a nationally recognized expert in the areas of primary care initiatives. He's a nationally recognized, sorry, I said that already. So he's an expert in the areas of primary care practice redesign and transformation, quality improvement and outcomes measurements, vaccine compliance, quality improvement and health system reform. And he served on the American Medical Association's Commission of Healthcare Disparities. He was a practicing physician for over 28 years and previously served as the executive medical director of the Group Practice Forum, where he led nationwide projects to coordinate care across continuum services, including preventative, outpatient, inpatient acute hospital care, post-acute care, and palliative care. Len has lectured extensively on the topics of health system reform and patient-centered medical home and the Accountable Care Organization, and has been featured on CBS and ABC News and the New York Times. Take it away, Len.
Thank you, Chioma. Good evening, everybody. It's great to be with you tonight. I'm going to take a few minutes, share a few slides, and tell you a story about my journey to today and how I got here, which really does tell the story about the title and subject matter I want to share with you about a market-driven solution that I personally believe is one of the best opportunities we have to start to fix what is so broken in our healthcare system. So you have to go back about 10 years. And there I was after 25 years as a primary care family physician on the front lines here in Los Angeles, seeing patients every day, day in, day out, busy practice, a panel of 2,500 patients, going home late every night, continuing to work as soon as we instituted the electronic record, continuing to have to do entry into that when I got home. And I had gotten involved in leadership in our national and state academies. And one day, the phone rings, and it's a friend of a friend who says that they were given my name for someone for him to talk to about this, what he himself termed was a crazy idea, that I was the one they needed to talk to who knew about healthcare and particularly about primary care and more particularly about team-based, patient-centered collaborative care in a value-based payment environment. And every one of those elements turns out to be very important about what this model is about that I've now been working in for the last 8.5 years. So the first year and a half, I started working with a team of leadership that had already created a set of social impact investment funds to deal with what they saw as the most pressing challenges to people living healthy, long, enjoyable lives in America. Their view was there were three challenges, social impacts to longevity and health, and they were the challenge of a good education system that we did not have in many communities, the challenge of affordable housing, which people did not have access to in many communities, and access to high quality primary care. So we worked on a mission for the third of those three approaches to solving those challenges, the third fund, which became our healthcare social impact investment fund about a year and a half after I started helping these folks with their mission, their thesis, the documents to form the fund. And what it amounted to was they listened. These were people, by the way, who were not healthcare people. They were real estate people, finance people, Wall Street people. And I think it's safe to say most of us on this call look skeptically about that block of minds coming to healthcare and what they think is a solution to it and how it's going to play out for the patients. So my job over that year and a half was to really educate them about primary care, about value-based payment in primary care, about serving the underserved, and the need to really fundamentally look differently at how we in America were doing primary care, we're doing healthcare, and ignoring primary care to the lack of betterment of the patient population. We launched the fund 8 years ago. We convinced investors to put enough money into the fund that we could build roughly in our first version of the fund. We're now in our second. You'll hear about that in a minute. But roughly, they put in enough money so we could build about $300 million worth of infrastructure. The mission of our fund is to build the infrastructure, the bricks and mortar and infrastructure that's needed for primary care to flourish in that environment, to take care of patients in the right space, to have all the technology that was needed. The infrastructure component is what we do. So we launched the fund. We started to build facilities with healthcare partner organizations who were also committed to the mission of serving the underserved. To this day now, 8 years later, we have 43 facilities that we have either built, are in construction, or we have signed term sheets. So there are 43 primary care community-facing facilities. We do not build hospital infrastructure or only outpatient. They are primary care and behavioral health, and those 43 facilities are caring for, or will care when they fully opened, about 175,000 patients. The reason that sounds, if you do the arithmetic, a little interesting is very heavily those 43 facilities are slanted towards frail, low-income elderly. And one of those types of facilities of the many we build is called PACE, Program of All-Inclusive Care for the Elderly. I hope some of you are familiar with that program, but essentially a PACE center is full when it's got maybe 250 patients. So you can see how when you multiply out, do the arithmetic. We do PACE centers. It's about half of our 43 facilities. We do community health centers for the FQHCs of the country. We do Medicare Advantage centers for the frail, low-income elderly. We do behavioral health facilities. Uh, Everything that I just mentioned, there's common factors in how the model works. The investors provide the capital. We partner with primary care organizations to deliver care to patients in the infrastructure we build with the capital we provide. How return is realized for the investors is simple. The total budget all in for what the facility project cost is. That's purchase of the land, hard and soft costs of construction, building permits, entitlement costs, legal costs, everything all in, total budget in a 100% transparent transaction where the clinical entity that we build it for, they see every single line of the budget. And what that total is gets multiplied by a rental rate consistent with what the community rates are for square footage for healthcare, outpatient healthcare in the community we're building it. It becomes a rent that they pay to return the capital we provide to build the project. We can provide up to 100% of the capital. No rent is paid until we hand over the keys, and we give them, the clinical entity, a purchase option. Unlike any other developer and builder would give, the purchase option that we give them is not at fair market value. It's actually at the original budgetary project cost. And if anybody on the call who starts to think about that, it's a great deal for them to get that option. It's not an obligation. Almost always it's less than what the fair market value would be. That's the model. It is that incredibly simple. What goes along with it, because it's a social impact fund operating under documents that require us to make the point that we are in fact impacting people's lives for the better and communities for the better. What we do is we collect key performance indicators on the care of the patients, and those metrics have to be given and fed back to our investors to prove to them that their money is making a difference, is helping people, and improving lives in the communities they're in. So that's the model. It's that simple. There's 100 details behind that matter greatly in success or not. But those, things like the lease that we sign with our clinical partners is usually 15 to 20 years with 2 5-year options to extend if they want, and they haven't bought it and with their purchase option because we want them to have permanence in the community and sustainability and success. There's added value that we bring to the projects. One of the things we can talk about in the Q&A has to do with our ability to help with recruitment and retention and some statistics around that. But what I did want to show you is the result of everything I just described and share with you some slides about what those metrics look like when we actually tabulate them, which is quarterly for the investors and then once a year at the large investment conference. So on the screen, I hope you are seeing the first slide I want to show you, which is a review across the portfolio of the impact we make. First thing I want to point out in the header there, almost 70% of the facilities that we built are in either health professional shortage areas or medically underserved areas, HPSA or MUA government designated areas. And 100% of them are in communities where the demographics mean they're targeting and serving patients that are in low to moderate income communities. On the top 2 bars here, what you see horizontally in the top half of the slide, first on the left, look at the average panel size. These are weighted, the benchmarks are weighted averages having to do with the patient population. So senior care centers, community health centers, we take the weighted averages and look at what the national benchmark is for the panel size. You see 833, and you're going to say, whoa, wait a minute, that's very low. I already told you my panel was 2,500 as a family doc. The reason it's 833, and that's the number that the weighted benchmark comes out to, has to do with the fact that you have team-based care, you have extenders with the physicians on a panel working collaboratively, but also you have specialized senior care centers like PACE and the Medicare Advantage centers in which the benchmarks are lower because of the high acuity of the patient. Look at the facilities we have built. It is about a third of that, a little more than a third in the panel size. Less members on each panel, less patients, more face time with the physicians. I'm showing you a little snapshot here of the many KPIs, key performance indicators we use, but less people on the panel, most obviously, more time to spend with each patient. On the right, you see another section with what we track pretty much in all the metrics is the quadruple aim. And you're seeing on patient experience scoring, we use the Net Promoter Score as the metric that we're using. If you're not familiar with that, it's used across all industries, including healthcare. And it's a measure of how satisfied the patients and their families are. And you see the net number for healthcare, outpatient, community facing healthcare in America, the benchmark is 38%. The scale goes from negative 100 to positive 100 on the NPS scores. 38% is above average compared to other industries, but that's the net number for healthcare. In our facilities, people are scoring at 74%. Just a dramatic increase, almost 2 to 1, more satisfaction, better experience with the care they're getting and the place they're getting it in, the team that's taking care of them. The bottom half of the slide looks at outcomes. It's just 2 snapshots. We have a lot of others that we collect, but these 2 I selected here. One is a very key national standard, which is hospital bed days per 1,000 patients per year. And you see the national benchmark for the patient populations that are being seen in our 43 facilities is up around 3,300 bed days per 1,000 per year. And the patients in our facilities with our care partners, our collaborating clinical organizations, are half of that, less than half of that, 1,600. Upstream primary care works. It makes a huge difference. It keeps people healthy. We do more chronic disease stability and management and prevention, secondary and tertiary prevention, and there's the numbers to prove it. On the lower right, if people do get admitted to the hospital, what's the 30-day all-cause readmission rate? The national benchmark for our patient populations is 24%. We're down at 14%, just dramatically improved, keeping people well once they come out of the hospital into the community. On the next slide, what I wanted to show you was a little bit of the kind of, it's not advancing. Brian, a little help with how I can get this to advance would be good.
John?
I'm sorry, John.
Yeah. If you click in the window there and then just hit an arrow, that'd be the first thing I could try.
There we go. I did that. It didn't work. It must have been delayed for some reason. So what you're looking here is the UN Sustainability Development Guidelines. So when you do developing and construction, there's a set of 17 domains that the United Nations Commission has declared that we want to achieve and point towards if you're helping people and communities. These are 8 of the selected. I selected 8 of the 17 just to point out the alignment between what we do and how we do it in the communities we're in, which are all those underserved LMI communities, with the International Sustainable Development Goals. And it's just a tremendous overlap in helping patients and the community they live in. And the last slide I wanted to show you was just paying attention to the environment matters also. If we're building infrastructure and we're trying to help communities and make a difference in people's lives and address the social determinants. You don't want to tear apart the earth to do it. So what we did was right on from the beginning, I told them they had to have an outside independent organization. We used the national one, coast to coast, independent organization that rates the buildings and the infrastructure across domains. And I'm showing you here energy, water, and building materials before and after we build an adaptive reuse or a ground up facility. And in every respect, you see the improvement in the materials we use, the improvement for the environment before and after we build the facility, the water usage, and the energy usage for an overall score, improvement score of 49%. So not only helping the patients, helping the community and the earth and the world we live in. So that's the story. I'm going to stop there. I love to take some questions, but I know that you're going to have lots of questions about detail behind the model. That's the model. And I can tell you it's nice to go home every night as a family doc and know that I've been able to impact the lives of 175,000 patients every day. And it's a nice 90-degree turn for what I did in my professional career.
Well, thank you so much, Len. We do want to open up for some questions. If you have something to ask, I have the chat up right over here. I do have a few questions to get us started with, because most people in healthcare are more than a little freaked out about the idea of private equity, which sometimes has a little bit of a funky history, if we're being honest. And so how can people tell the difference between the good guys, the bad guys, of whom there are far too many? Can you imagine a world in which regular people who want to pay it forward, participate as investors in their own healthcare organizations? What would that look like to you, Len?
Great questions, Patty. Great questions. I got freaked out also 9 years ago when they said to me after all this, a year of helping them form the thesis and the mission and what was going to happen. These are all real estate, finance, Wall Street people, private equity people. And they said to me, we want you to run the fund. And I said, I can't even repeat what I said because the words would be too improper to repeat to a group audience. And they said, don't worry, we're going to surround you with really smart people who know about all the things you don't know, but we need you to bring honesty and we need you to bring primary care. We need the healthcare from you. So what do you look for to make sure it's the good guys and not the bad guys? Number one, the way we structured the fund, and I had them build the governing documents, we never get in the middle between the patient and the healthcare provider. Never, never. Look for that carefully when you look at options here. We don't provide the care. We don't make the money contingent upon what they do. We're simply the landlord in that model transaction and they're not their landlord if they want to buy it. We're there to facilitate everything via the infrastructure. That's number one. Number two, make sure you've got primary care people in the room. The governing body, I'm on the investment committee to make decisions, thumbs up, thumbs down on any project. I'm one of 5 votes. It's critical, the governance, and those are the 2 really big things. There's a lot of other things, but that's how you start to tell who's the good guys and who's not with private equity.
No, I think that's really important. I see a few things popping in the chat, but I also wanted to ask, communities might use like a municipal bond process to raise funds to build things like a medical school or a community health center. So how is what you're describing similar or different to that process?
Yeah, another great question. Of the 43 facilities, we've got about 80% who exercised their purchase option. They didn't want to be in the real estate business. They wanted to focus on healthcare. All of the ones who refinanced from rent receipts with our model to them owning it, essentially some kind of mortgage, did it. A lot of them did it if they were not-for-profit organizations, and about half of our facilities are with not-for-profit clinical organizations. They did it with they floated bond issues. So yes, they can do that. In addition, it reminds me to tell you that in the model I described, every dollar that the clinical organization can bring to the uh, contract, the long-term lease to build the facility and develop it, reduces the rent basis by a dollar, 1 for 1. They bring a dollar in, they have a grant from HRSA. We reduce if they could put that money into the project, that's great. It reduces the rent dollar for dollar. It lowers the basis. In terms of recruitment and retention, how can communities kind of look at this and be partnered with it? We're working on a solution right now about scholarship and loan repayment fund, to take part of the fund that we have in the capital and be able to ethically and legally create a loan repayment and scholarship fund to help with recruitment and retention. We already know that with the facilities we built, comparing 1 to 1, equal to equal, apples to apples, that the average length of retention of the professionals and the team supporting the professionals is much longer. It's about 2 to 1 length of stay, less churn in the employment. We track employment numbers, we track recruitment statistics. It's all better because a facility is something that they love to work in, and that fourth part of the quadruple aim, the healthcare team's experience in the process, we track those scores also, and they're skyrocket compared to what the typical setting is.
So it sounds a little bit like for filling the building, it's build it and they shall come a little bit.
Oh, yes. Very much
It
so.
sounds a little bit like something Michael Fine might say. What would you say, Michael?
Well, I like the build the building and they will come, but I also love the focus on scholarships and loan repayment, understanding one of the challenges that we all face providing primary care to everyone is making sure we have adequate workforce, and that workforce has an adequate work life so that they can continue to get some pleasure out of the work they do every day.
And Michael, you remind me to mention that we're talking with a handful of organizations that want to build more medical schools, and we want to build them for them. So we would, the way we have created the fund, we can use some of the capital to build the bricks and mortar of the medical schools.
It's fantastic. So thanks, Lynn. We're going to come back to questions in just a minute, but I want to take a second to thank Lynn and to reflect a little bit on what we just heard. I think a lot of us have been thinking over the last month or so about the 16 million people who may lose health insurance in the next few years, which is all heartbreaking, and feels like it's a real disaster. But when you think about it, it's a disaster not just because they're losing health insurance. It's a disaster because we've come to rely on health insurance as the ticket to health care instead of doing what Len and Turner and others have been doing, and that's resourcing communities to build their own healthcare systems, and take responsibility themselves, and provide primary care to everyone. As Len showed us tonight, a few dedicated people can think creatively and really figure out different solutions to make the future better than the past. A few dedicated people means all of us. I mean, people here have been working on that for the last 2 years for primary care, and we hope we'll continue to work on that and work on that successfully, starting tonight. So help by stepping up in your own community, download the local playbook, find one other person, and get started. As our friend and board member Sarah Pastor says, don't agonize, organize. We're here to help, and help you all help one another. Chioma?
Thank you. All right, so in 2 weeks, we'll be meeting again. We encourage everyone to invite someone new to get involved in our movement. So please mark your calendar for Tuesday, August 19th, we'll be hearing from Dr. Pecha Stojcik about starting a local work group. We look forward to seeing you then and there. So please register on our website, www.primarycareforallamericans.org, where you can also check out our local state playbook, volunteer, and donate to support our cause. Now, I would like to reintroduce Brian Kaiser, one of our board members, who will talk about how you can support primary care for all Americans and why your help, even if it's only a few dollars, is so important.
Thanks, Chioma. As anyone on this call knows, primary care is the only form of healthcare that leads to lower health spending and better health outcomes. And Primary Care for All Americans is building a grassroots movement to transform our failed healthcare delivery system into one that's affordable, high quality, and accessible to all, built community by community on a foundation of primary care. We are a lean organization run mostly by volunteers, but what we do isn't free. Your support, even just a few dollars a month, strengthens our advocacy, our powers to research, and it amplifies the voices of those too often left out of the conversation. Every contribution moves us closer to a fairer, healthier system for all. So please go to primarycareforallamericans.org and click on donate. Any amount helps. And if you can make your contribution a monthly recurring one, that helps us even more. It allows us to plan for the future and commit the dollars we need to do the things we need to do in the long run. So thank you very much for joining us. That is a big step. And thank you to those of you who are able to donate a few dollars to help us continue this movement to bring primary care to all in this country. Thanks.
I'm going to jump in for a second, if I may. Patty, do you think we have time to take some more questions from the group as a whole?
I think that sounds great. Yeah, I was actually just reading in the chat right here some questions specifically about, sort of getting started in how the business plan. I think Paul said it well. How do you locate prospects for investment? And I'm assuming Donna also had said, do you have a region that you're working in? So Len, can you sort of give us the initial, do you pick an area by what you love, or are there some key indicators that you are looking for to say this is a successful place to get started?
Yeah, sure. So we are coast to coast. We don't restrict it to any part of the country. And we have a bottom-up, top-down approach to where we're going to be. We do not speculate. We do not say we want to go there and find a piece of property and then go and try and find somebody to take care of patients in that property. What we do is we talk with, and this was a large part of why they wanted a healthcare presence on the team, to be able to network with and go out and find healthcare organizations in cities that we identified had the most need and neighborhoods that had the most need. But we will not secure a property until we have a healthcare provider organization that says to us, that's where we want to be. So we go with where they tell us they want to be by zip code. They give us a handful of zip codes. We have an onboard in-house real estate division. We then go search the area where they want. They tell us, the healthcare provider tells us where they want to be, and we present 5 to 10 options that are available that we think are the best. They pick the one they want. We then secure the property by doing a purchase sale agreement. We buy it from whoever owns it. If it's an adaptive reuse, there's something already on it. We have a design team and construction management team around the country that handles all of the development of the plan for design, the finishes, everything, you name it. What we always say to people when they say, well, how much do you do and what do we do as the healthcare provider in terms of the facility? If you could take the roof off of what we build and turn it upside down, anything that does not fall out, that's our responsibility when we build the project. And that's what they see in every line of the budget. The rest of it, furniture, right? Things that would not be bolted down or in the walls and all of the low voltage, that's us. But again, this is a 100 details thing, right? If somebody decides they're going to have an EMR, everybody's got an EMR, and that EMR is going to be executed with the healthcare team having tablets, then it's clear cut. But what happens if they put an arm on bolted into the wall that, articulates all different directions, and that's the hardware that's being used by the team. So, we have to work through that. That's all handled in this lease that we sign with our provider organizations. When you think about a lease, don't think about ours being that way. It's 100 pages, 75 to 100 pages. I noticed somebody had a question about how do you set up these key performance indicator metric measurements? And I'll tell you, very big part of that started right from the beginning. We made a commitment. We would never add to the burden that the provider groups have, the provider organizations have in their reporting requirements already to various state and federal agencies. So we match the metrics we're trying to get to the ones they already are reporting. We don't want to make them schizophrenic and have to duplicate effort and all that, and keep it as simple as possible so they can push a button and send the metrics we need.
Yeah, I appreciated during your presentation you talk about this holistic approach. One thing, Judith had sent in a few questions. I'm going back and looking at them. Judith, did you have additional questions or want any additional clarification on those?
Yes, thanks for your presentation. It's very interesting. I'm wondering how these clinics make the business model work. I mean, how are they getting paid? I mean, that's the facilities is clearly one thing, but what about the operations?
So, terrific question. Let me clarify that they get paid like they always would for the healthcare they provide. The organizations we build things for have embraced and made a commitment to do value-based care. So they get paid, all of them, in one way, shape, or form or another. From one end of the spectrum, they start with value-based contracts and get paid prospectively, to the extreme end of a pay center where they get paid a per member per month global fee for everything the patient needs, everything. Primary care, specialty care, imaging, lab, transportation, meals, hospitalization if it happens. All of that is between the healthcare organization and the payer, right? Be it a government program, Medicare, Medicaid, CHIP, be it a private commercial insurance, be it sliding scale. It's all between the patient insurer, the patient payer, and the healthcare provider. We don't get in the middle of that, and that's one of the things that Patty made me be honest about and tell you. We don't want to have private equity in the middle of that because that's when bad things start to happen. So that's how they get paid like they always would, but we make sure that they've embraced value-based payment and not volume-based payment. How good is the care they're giving and at what cost, population health-wise?
Okay, thank you. I would imagine that having more PACE organizations and Medicare Advantage, they get paid better. So they have the resources to be able to really deliver on that kind of care.
It's an interesting equation. If you do it right, you can do very well doing PACE care as a provider, as a PACE operator. We love PACE. We think it's one of the best kept secrets in American healthcare. Yeah. There's only 80, I think there's now 84,000 PACE patients in the country. It's a drop in the bucket. The eligible PACE patients that are out there number in the millions, and it's an alternative to a nursing home. So having a great alternative to a nursing home that actually saves money, it costs the taxpayers, if they're Medicare and Medicaid patients, dual eligible, which most of them are, it's a derivative of what would have been paid for the nursing home in the first place. They take about 10 to 12% off of what the nursing home cost would have been. and it works, and they're healthier, and they have better outcomes, and their families are happier. They get, in every respect, it's so much better about how healthcare should look.
I agree about pace. Absolutely. Thank you.
So reflective of that question that Judith and you were just talking about, John Wright put into the chat, are these investors in it for profit, or is there a second sort of bottom line that is more humanitarianism? And I would almost add to that, as you are looking for potential investors, who are the types of people that you are looking at or looking for? Is it more someone who's got this humanitarianism mindset that also understands business, or is it business people that you're trying to see if they have a beating heart in there?
I love the way you put it, Patty. Excellent, excellent paraphrase of the question. They are all of the same ilk, and the way I can sum it up is they want to do well and do good at the same time. That's what's common to every one of the investors and investor organizations. So, yes, there is a return generated from the financial model. It's not philanthropy by them. They, to a person, I think all of our investors and all the leadership in our investors, they do philanthropy, but they know that's not scalable to the need in the country. And the need starts to be addressed better when you can think about scaling operations and size and number of facilities and what's needed out there, enormously needed. We always get, when we do presentations in meetings across the country, large, gatherings of people doing healthcare, we always get a question, why are you so free about sharing your model? Aren't you afraid somebody's going to compete with you? And our answer is, please do. We're just scratching the surface. We're just touching the tip of the iceberg. There's so much more need. So who are the investors who demand that we prove to them that they're doing good, right? That they're making a difference in people's lives with the metrics we share with them, that they see the impact they're making, as well as get their return. The gamut runs from foundation endowment funds, university endowments, union health, welfare, and pension funds, high net worth individuals, banks with CRA credits on their mind, across the board. I would stress they all do have a beating heart, they all do care, and they do want to make a difference, and we've got to prove it to them. That is what goes on when we have investor meetings. They ask, they're not saying, show me the money. They're saying, show me the results. And that clinical part of the results is critical to them.
No, I think that's really fair, as you look at the investment model and wanting to make sure that people understand that, philanthropy only gets us so far. There has to be a return on investment that is happening for the community and for the individual. I think Seneca asked a great question sort of on the other side of this. Seneca, if you want to come off mute and sort of share your question a little bit and give you just a moment, go ahead.
Sure. Yeah. I mean, the big risk with value-based care in general, especially as we sort of embed it inside of paying organizations, is that you start treating the metric rather than the actual outcome. And so you were showing us a slide that showed that we had low rates of rehospitalization and low numbers of hospital days, but you could easily get that value by being an organization that sort of selects out for populations inside of low-income communities that don't like to go to the hospital. And I wonder, do you have systems in place to kind of get into that nitty-gritty of making sure you have good partners that you're trying to invest in that aren't necessarily isolating out the sort of highest risk populations inside of those communities that you're trying to invest in?
I'm going to use another term that Patty's going to love. Yes, we do that. We have a very strong clinical diligence process in parallel with our credit risk underwriting financial diligence process when we look at the clinical organizations we're going to partner with. And the saying that I've been harping on for 10 years, we don't want to let the clinical partners be an organization that's doing cherry picking and lemon dropping. That's always been the issue with value-based care, managed care. And I can tell you, first of all, we have a large chunk of the 43 centers that are very qualified community health centers. And they have to see everybody who walks in the door. They cannot say, oh, you're too sick. We get a value-based payment. We're not going to let you be our patient. They're not allowed to. There's a lot happening, and I know everybody on the call is aware of the OBBBA and the bill and some of the rules around now. They're being told they have to ask about someone's immigration status, and that kind of bangs head on into the existing law that says they're not allowed to ask anybody about their immigration status or ability to pay from years ago. So that's got to be cleared up. But my point is, the clinical organizations are vetted very thoroughly, and there's nobody in that group that's doing cherry picking for the healthy people and dropping the lemons that were very sick. One part of that, Seneca, that's interesting is the payment in value-based payments in PACE for sure, and Medicare Advantage, between the government and the payer, or the government and the PACE operator, there's an adjustment for clinical acuity. So a sicker patient, actually, the payment gets adjusted upward based on the multiplier around how sick the patient is through a series of historical review of hospitalizations in the past, the number of medications they're on, how long is their problem list, et cetera, et cetera. So, the system's not perfect, but there's a lot of effort going on to prevent what you asked about, and to, really make it fair that the cost that you're going to incur by taking care of a patient in a capitated environment should be reflective of the payment you're getting.
Did that answer all your questions? Perfect. That's what we're here to do. I do want to just make sure that we give Chioma a second to let everyone know what's going on. I did see, just as she comes on for a moment, we will get back to group questions in just a second, but I did see some conversation about Health Rosetta happening, and just wanted to let people know that we will be there. And by we, I mean not me, but Michael Fine will be there on site. And so maybe Michael, after Chioma does the wrap up, you can just give a quick little update on that, what will be going on. So Chioma, you want to tell everyone what's happening next?
Sure. So first of all, thank you everyone for joining us tonight. We appreciate every single one of you for helping spread this movement across our nation in order to get the change that everyone deserves. Please take a minute to complete our survey via the link in the chat. We want to hear from you. And if you would like to speak with the members of the leadership team, please stay on the call, and board members will also be there as well. And we would love to hear your feedback. We'll see you, and we'll join you again on August 19th.
Great. Thank you. I think George had a question, but while he's coming on, Health Rosetta, in a second, standing on one foot, Health Rosetta is a really interesting organization, if you don't know it, that focuses on redesigning health insurance, the health insurance process, working with cities and towns and small employers, and making sure that everyone who has a health insurance from a specific employer has a primary care relationship first. I'm sure I'm not doing it justice, but they work with over 1,000 benefit advisors all across the country to help benefit advisors help employers redo health insurance. The most interesting part, in my view, I mean, lots of it is interesting, is what they've done in Ashtabula, Ohio. And we actually had a talk about that from Bryce Hanbaugh maybe a year ago, about how they worked with the city's purchase of insurance for city employees, reduced healthcare costs, plowed some of that reduced costs back into the schools, and then opened the process so that small employers in the community could buy insurance through the process, and created in that way something called a community-owned health plan. And that whole notion is in our local playbook as one of the options that we hope to bring to communities as things go forward. Health Rosetta is focusing on the insurance benefit folks. We're focusing on building local work groups in the community to help bring these kinds of solutions forward. So we're, you know, we are, I would call us fellow travelers in an interesting way. George, do you want to come on and ask your question?
Thank you, thank you. And I guess Len has left. I just wanted to thank him. Very interesting, informative discussion, presentation of his model. Something really to marvel at in happening in the United States. Another private sector example of providing primary care. You know about this, Michael, because we've talked about it. But is the self-funded companies around the country that really out of desperation because their healthcare costs were going up so rapidly, so consistently year after year, that in many cases the CEO got the employees together and said, "Hey, we're going to go out of business if we can't solve this problem." And they, long story short, they were able to set up a value-based healthcare plan that got the employees head in the game of using primary care, but they were able to use it because these companies invested real money in building on-site clinics, staffing them with primary care clinicians, nurses, physical therapy people, etc. And they were also able to give the employees access to data, price and value data about the providers in that geographic area for, the top 50 procedures, knee surgeries, etc., that the employees would have to get. And if the employee used one of the high value providers, the money that was saved, half of it would go to the company, half of it would go to the employee. Well,
George,
yeah.
can I pull out a question for Lynn?
Yeah. And then the other part of this was using information systems, information technology to give tools to the patients so they could get more involved in their own care. And I'm just interested in your reaction, Len, to those two developments. Thank you.
Yeah, I mean, great. I agree 100% with what you said. The self-funded companies that it makes sense to do it in are one of the solutions. But I'll tell you, they have to go all in. There's a lot that goes along with that. They have to become educators. Health literacy has to be improved among the employees and their families. There's a lot there, but yes, there is absolute potential to do that. You reminded me of a great story from maybe 15 years ago, where one of the very large employers in the Midwest was just pulling his hair out. The guy who started the company and owned it, pulling his hair out. Lots of employees, like 10,000 employees, and the cost of healthcare was just up and up and up and up and up, and it was spiraling upward. And he called me to come in through the AAFP, Commission on Healthcare Services connection. And we went into the boardroom, and he literally was pounding on the table, screaming at the primary care docs who were taking care of his employees. And why can't you keep people healthy? Why is it so much, why is it costing so much? And, they looked at me and said, well, tell them. And I was like, okay, I'll tell you. And I basically told the CEO, you're paying for all the wrong things. All the money's not going to the primary care teams. All the money's going to the specialists and the hospital and all the rescue care. And these guys don't have time to keep the patients well. you know, on and on and on. And then finally, the CEO said, okay, what do we do about it? So we had a like 1 hour discussion in front of primary care about everything they needed, how the rates he was paying, how to go to them more, higher percentage of the premium dollars, or in his case, the self-funded dollars. And he had to start investing in social determinants. He said, what do you mean? I said, find out what they like to do in their lives. You know what they need to do to be healthier in terms of eating healthy, exercising, et cetera, et cetera. And guess what? He started paying for health club memberships for his employees. He started buying them bicycles if they wanted. He started giving them cooking classes, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera, all the way down the path. And it turned things around almost immediately. 15 years later, that CEO is one of our investors.
A great story, and then I promise, Michael, I'll be quiet. One of the components for some of these companies that made them successful was that they went to their insurer and got them involved to lean on the providers in the area to give up the data on the different procedures, because without that data, they couldn't, differentiate between high value and low value. And so it was interesting. It's a good, there's a book about all this. It's called The Company That Solved Healthcare. If you're interested.
The amazing thing to me is that in a certain way, this isn't rocket science. We sort of know the data. It's been around for 30 years. Getting primary care folks in multidisciplinary teams, taking care of everybody in a community, getting them the data that they need to do it and do it right, without nickeling and diming them with, ridiculous EMR requests, and crazy insurance company regulations. It's like incredibly straightforward. The challenge is to do what Lenny's doing and what others around the country are doing, and that's finding a place to stand and get started, so that we can get going in lots of different places. Sometimes, it comes from employers. Sometimes it comes from communities. I was in a community on Saturday, where it's a community of some means. There are 3,500 people. There's no primary care doctor within 15 miles of them. And so they're struggling. It's like we can get all this done, but we got to roll up our sleeves, get communities involved, get employers involved, and just, kind of speak truth to power to a certain degree. Just lay out the simple ways of getting started and get started, not just talk about what to do, but get started doing it. That's the challenge. That's the opportunity. I think we're out of time. I don't know how to thank everybody enough for being here. Len and the Zoom committee and Chioma, and Brian for putting this all together. Thanks to everybody. And we'll see you in 2 weeks, and hopefully bring people who are ready to start local work groups, because we got to get them. We got a bunch going. We got more to go. Let's get them going in every single state and in every single community. And we get that done by talking to each other. Thanks, everybody.
Thanks all. Take care.